Why do you believe
colour
them?
and prejudice.
Why do you believe them?
But it's not about whether I believe them.
Why?
It's not
well,
about whether I believe them.
Without any proof.
What it's about is that they think it's true, and what you need to understand is
no, of course it's not,
it's
Paula.
Family,
it's got nothing to do with whether they think it's true. Fascinating piece in the New York Times has just come out. Headlined, has Prince Harry's confessional tour run its course? Even in the United States, the New York Times says, which has a high tolerance for redemptive stories about overcoming trauma and family dysfunction, the tide seems to be turning. It's one thing to be criticised, it's another to be openly ridiculed. That's pretty heavy coming from the New York Times.
It is, because they would be very much on Harry and Meghan's side. But one does sense that, well, there's still, quite a strong bedrock of opinion in favour of them, that they are less popular than they were over here. And, there's only so much moaning that you can put up with, isn't there?
Right. I completely agree. I mean, how do you keep doing it? Where is it? Where can they go? They've trashed all their family repeatedly. There's no one left to trash. What about Prince Andrew? What impact is all his scandal having? Does it really resonate in America in the same way, even though it arguably is a lot more serious?
I don't think it does quite in the same way, because it's sort of not really an ongoing soap opera, is it? The good thing about Harry and Meghan is there's such a strong narrative drive there, isn't it, to keep everyone interested. Whereas Andrew, he's just a mess who messed up and sort of covered himself and the family in shame. But it doesn't really go anywhere.
Do you think either of them, Valentine, will be at the coronation, either Prince Andrew or Harry and Meghan?
I suspect Prince Andrew will be. I think the King will invite him, and he, if invited, he'll definitely be there. I think in terms of Harry and Meghan, I think they'll certainly be invited because for King Charles not to invite his son would really be seen as sort of petty and vindictive and not in the spirit of reconciliation.
I wouldn't invite one of my sons if they'd done that to the family. I can tell you. They'd be absolutely NFI.
That's why you're not king. That's why you're not king, Piers.
Well, at the moment, Valentine, at the moment, stranger things have happened. Richard, the royals, the coronation, it is a soap opera, but they're real people. We're hurtling towards the coronation in a few weeks' time, in early May. What's he going to do, Charles, about his brother? Now in the headlines again because of the Ghislaine Maxwell interview with Harry and Meghan, his son, trashing all the family.
It's very easy. He has to retain the moral high ground. Of course he has to invite all his family. Whether or not they attend, I suspect that Valentine's right. I don't think Harry and Meghan will attend. I think backdoor channels will say, please stay in America.
Why invite them? I mean, I don't care.
Because you've got to retain the moral high ground. You're king. You're bringing people together. You're leading from the front, a whole nation, and just don't stir the pot. Whereas I suspect Prince Andrew, he will attend and be sort of stuck on the back row.
Paula, the resident defender of all things Meghan and Harry, I mean, why, if they hate the royal family and the monarchy so much and trash the institution and cause such damage to it? All right, whatever you want to call it.
Stop saying the word hate.
Right.
No one has suggested that hate is relevant in this issue.
Given they've caused so much damage to the institutional reputation of the monarchy, why would they want to be at a coronation of a new monarch?
Given the fact that they have raised difficulties that they have had...
Well, they said the royals were racist then, so we didn't mean to say they were racist.
That's what we're talking about, the problems that they have raised. Let's be clear about that.
They lied.
And the problems that they have raised are really serious issues.
They lied.
Mental health issues, issues around domestic abuse, issues around race and colour and prejudice.
Why do you believe them?
But it's not about whether I believe them.
Why?
It's not about whether I believe them.
Without any proof.
What it's about is that they think it's true. And what you need to understand is...
No, of course it's not, Paula. It's got nothing to do with whether they think it's true.
Something's either true or it's not.
Thank you, Anne Widdecombe.
True or not.
If that was the case, then I wouldn't be in a job.
What?
The fact is, your truth may not be my truth.
No, there's only the
truth.
How you define
Paula, there is no my truth.
You and I may interpret things differently, but there is a factual truth.
Paula,
and it will be very different to the two of us. That doesn't mean that either of us are wrong.
Hello?
I know, and I'm choosing to ignore you.
It's my show. It's my show, and I'll cut off your mic in a minute. Here's the bottom line. There is no my truth, your truth. There is the truth.
One truth.
And you know what really got my goat about those two? Was the two most damaging things they said in that first Oprah Wine-a-thon were that the royals have been racist to them about the skin colour of their son, and that secondly, Meghan Markle had gone to a senior palace person who had banned her from getting help for her suicidal thoughts. Neither of those things appear in his book. He's already reined back now on the racism charge, said that's not what he meant, when we all know that's exactly what they meant. They said it. We watched them say it. And secondly, Richard, on the mental health thing, again, a very big weapon to hurl at the palace, that they were callous about her suicidal thoughts. Not a word has been mentioned since. Nothing in the Netflix documentary, nothing in the book. I don't think it happened. And I had to leave my last job for not believing it.
How can Harry have therapy, but she not have therapy?
She had a therapist on speed dial.
Unless he didn't think that she deserved it. I mean, the whole thing's a complete nonsense. You just can't trust any of it, Paula.
The Queen summed it up, though, didn't she, when she said that memories may differ.
Recollections
may vary, but still only one.
That's the Queen's way of saying
that. So what happens is, when you have a situation where somebody is in pain, where you say something that you do not consider to be insulting, where you do not consider to be hurtful or in any way intentional even, but that doesn't mean that the other person doesn't take it that way. That doesn't mean that the other person doesn't leave that discussion and be pain and feel that that's what's happened.
We're talking about them going on Oprah Winfrey and calling the royal family racists, and then 2 years later, after all the damage of that race charge against the royal family, and they never named the racist, Harry now says, we didn't say anyone was racist. The evil British press, who are responsible for everything in Harry's world, they made it all up.
He's technically right. They didn't say that.
No, he's
they didn't say that,
he's a
did they? They didn't say the words,
Oh, come on.
Richard?
He could have rose back from it the following day.
That's a different topic. That's a different
It's the same topic.
Was there a nuance there that people were led to believe?
Paula, have you always defended the indefensible? Was it a new trait of yours? And that's your new filibuster technique. You basically keep talking.
Stop digging.
Anne,
yes.
What do we do about the royals?
Well, first of all, I do not think that Harry and Meghan should be at the coronation. No. For one very simple reason.
If they're there,
if they're there, they then become the story.
And they'll be taping everybody.
And heaven knows, private conversations, the royals will be very uneasy. So I do not think they should come to the coronation. I don't think it matters whether Andrew's there or not, because I rather think that he also, he will just be in the background and there'll be a comment.
I agree. He won't try and take the attention.
He's not going to take all the cameras.
I wouldn't trust, if I were the royal family, I wouldn't trust the Sussexes as far as I could throw them.
Piers, if there's to be reconciliation, it takes time.
You don't get reconciliation by releasing a 410-page book trashing your family.
He's not the first one to release an autobiography.
Paula, we've run out of time.
Not the first.
But you know what? We can continue this. You can come back again, because I like the new Paula. It's irritating, but I quite like it. Sam Smith, he, they, them, she, whatever he currently calls himself, she does, they
yes.
Whatever they... You see, I can't call one person they. I have a problem with that. There's only one of them.
Because you can't get your head around it.
No, because he can't either.
You need to take time.
They can't either, because they keep changing their minds what they are.
No, it's not their problem. It's your problem.
Well, they was a gay man, came out as gay. Then he said, actually, I'm now non-binary.
Yes.
Then something else. And now they have got the gall to come out and say that the Brit Awards fiasco, where all the nominees for Best Artist, of course, are men, because they made it gender neutral, so the men dominate again.
So you're accepting about the sex discrimination that still exists?
No. Oh, you see, how classic that a woman, because the five best artists...
You seem to be getting bored about it.
Because the five
I am. I'm bored about the sex discrimination as well.
Oh, so you make it gender neutral to avoid discrimination.
Not me.
When the 5 best artist nominations actually turn out to be men that year, that's discrimination against women.
But no one was surprised.
What about going back to having best women and best men, which was what old Sam Smith wanted to stop, right? They wanted it to stop. They wanted non-binary to get the same part of the pie as men and women. And guess what? Now he wants more women to be nominated. Really, Sam Smith? They... How do I even speak to they?
The reality is, and the reason why you're getting so tired, the reason why you're exhausted...
It's exhausting.
And it's true.
It's exhausting.
It's true, because
somebody's gay 1 minute, they're non-binary the next. They want women removed from award ceremonies. They want gender-neutral awards. And then when it turns out that no women get nominated, that becomes sexism. Then they wants to have more women in.
Piers, take a breath.
The whole thing is
utterly ridiculous.
Problem.
There is no such thing as a woke war. This is you.
Oh, no, there is.
Yourself
Oh, no,
excited and exhausted
there is.
about a myth.
No, there is.
And we need to dispel that.
No,
Okay,
there
this is about
absolutely
Sam
is.
Smith. This is about them discovering, going on a journey
feel ridiculous
about
calling
who
a single
they
person
are.
It is ridiculous.
And you need to keep up with that, and you're struggling.
No, I don't need
and so,
to.
And
No,
so
I don't
because
need
you're
to.
struggling,
I don't.
you want us to
I
stop.
actually
but we
can't-
don't need to stop.
Paula, I can't actually keep up with Sam Smith.
Yeah.
They
How
change
clearly?
their identity so often from he to she to they to whatever. I can't keep up with it.
And why does that?
And why should I have
Can I
to?
ask?
And why does that?
Why should I have to?
How many women do you think were asked for their permission to whether they think the women's category should be removed?
Exactly.
How many women do you think were
Why
so...
do you ask
were up-
Adele, who said the whole
Exactly.
thing was ridiculous?
How many, no, but
Yeah,
this is
and
the
I
thing,
agree
because
with you,
that decision was made effectively by people backing this man. It is literally the patriarchy.
Yeah.
The fact that one confused man, which is what Sam Smith is, said, oh, but we don't want to identify as male or female. And so they removed the female
I'm not
category.
sure
Now,
he would agree
and now Sam
with
Smith
you
says
defining
we've
him
got to
as
get more women
confused.
back
Oh,
on
he's
the
obviously
list.
confused.
I'm not sure he would agree with you as defining him
Well,
as confused.
he wouldn't, obviously.
He? What do you mean he?
Yeah, what do
them,
you mean
they,
they?
Paula,
she.
Paula, hang on. You just misgendered Sam Smith.
I
know.
did, and I apologise.
Can you please apologise to they?
I apologise.
Look into the camera.
Say
Look into the camera.
apologise to they,
Yeah.
please.
I
To them, I mean.
apologise. I
To them.
apologise.
Shed a tear, shed a
I
tear.
didn't mean to do that.
You're too dry.
But
You see
isn't
how easy
this-
it is?
It is easy, but what we need to do is have this conversation.
Actually, I'm
and by
fed up with
calling
it.
somebody,
No, I'm fed up
and
with the
by calling
conversation.
somebody
No,
confused,
no, I'm not. I'm
it's
fed up
not
with it.
helpful.
If I said my pronoun was hottest man alive, if that was my genuine pronoun, would you feel obliged to call me that every day? Hey, hottest man alive? No, you wouldn't, would you? No. So,
no,
in other words,
I
it all
wouldn't.
depends who decides what they want to be
and
called.
isn't that what we're discussing? The fact that I don't have to do that, that
So why
that's
do we have to
okay.
call
Why do we have to call
they?
Sam Smith they?
Because we're respecting
So
their
why don't you respect
choice.
me? That's my choice.
When do I have
Hang on,
to
it's
call
my
you?
choice.
When do I have to call
I want to be
you
called hottest man alive.
hottest man alive?
Yes,
All the time.
That is my choice, and I demand you respect it.
I'm
By the way, mine is Her
struggling
Majesty.
because we're now. I think.
Sorry, my preferred
I think we're
pronouns
now
are hottest man
really
alive.
demeaning the topic, aren't we?
Sorry,
By,
I
what
want
are
you to-
what are you now going to say that
you just
today,
said-
today you're
you just
world's
said we have
hottest
to
man.
call-
Tomorrow you want to
You
define
just
yourself
said
as
we
a
have to call-
chair or as
Hang
a
on.
dolphin.
Well, I once identified as a two-spirit penguin because I was told there are 100 genders, including astrogender, which is an affinity with the stars. And I was told, Piers, stop being ridiculous. I was like, if there are 100 genders, I can be a two-spirit penguin.
I think the
I can now
serious part-
demand you call me as my pronouns, hottest man
I
alive.
think the
But you don't
serious
want to
part-
because you think
the
that's ridiculous.
serious part of this
But you'll
conversation.
call a single person they and them.
The serious
How is
part
that
of this
serious?
conversation is about people who do not fit into your box, and you struggle with
they're
that.
confused.
Here's where I struggle.
You struggle with
yeah,
that.
but Paula, let me answer. Here's my problem with Sam Smith. They said, when they weren't actually they, when they were a gay man, they said, we need to even up these award ceremonies by making them all gender neutral. I demand it. It's now happened, and they, as the former gay man now wants us to call him, now says it's terribly unfair and we've got to have more women. They are responsible for where we've got to. Look, I have a view that the moment Andrew paid that cheque, it was game over in this case. He can't revisit this. You know, he said, I'm going to take it all the way, I'm going to clear my name. Then he just caved and paid a massive amount of money, millions. We're not exactly sure how many. You read between 3 and 10 million. It's, you know, take your choice. But it was millions and millions of dollars to a woman he claims he never met, which never had any credibility, as far as I'm concerned. Why would you pay someone you never met millions of dollars in a sex abuse case? So you put it all together and you think that. But, and it's an important but, if his main accuser, the woman he's paid all this money to, has got now serious credibility issues, why shouldn't Andrew re-enter the legal fray?
It's an entirely separate case. This is absolutely classic. People going out of their way to discredit the victim of sex abuse crimes.
Well, hang on.
These girls, generally girls...
But hang on, just look, to play devil's advocate, people aren't going out of their way to do it. She was discredited in her allegations against Alan Dershowitz.
In one
he won
in
that
one
case.
case.
Right, but
One
if an accuser admits that she actually lied about that man and told very serious allegations about which turned out not to be true, that's different, isn't it?
I think it's really important to remember that these girls come from chaotic backgrounds, which is one of the reasons why it's so hard to make a case stick, which is why we all have to remember when we've been listening to what Ghislaine Maxwell's been saying, this is a woman who was called out by the judge. She was called out.
You've got notes because you don't know anything about this case.
I do know quite a lot about talking truth to power. I'm sitting here on an NDA, so I understand what it's like
you don't know about
as a
Virginia
woman.
Giuffre.
I can tell you quite a lot. She was called out by the judge.
Have you read
Judge
her book?
Nathan.
Have you read
Judge
her book?
Nathan.
Have you read her book, which is a
No.
made-up book? There you go.
I have not.
She talks in
not
that
read her
book about taking so many sleeping pills and so many drugs the weekend at Kinnerton Street that her memory was very hazy. She writes that with her own hand.
Let's recall the Virginia Giuffre, Ghislaine Maxwell, heinous and predatory is what the judge called her. And she went out of her, one second, she went out of her way to give Ghislaine a 20-year sentence that was beyond the maximum guideline. That is how appalling it was. It was extraordinary to get all those women talking truth to power in that way. So don't let's just finally miscredit. Miscredit Giuffre and her bravery. I'm going to be. Let's just be honest.
She's a liar.
I just want to finally remind you what Andrew signed his name to.
Okay.
I
just want to... Sorry for the bad language that was used. There's no need for that. Victoria, here's the bottom line with this. I don't believe Ghislaine Maxwell at all. Right? I think she was up to her neck in it with Epstein. I think she was guilty as she was found guilty. And I find this revisionist bleating she's now doing is all self-centred to try and get herself off the rap. The more interesting question for me is Andrew, because he remains...
He was made to settle. He didn't want to settle.
But he's a grown man. What makes him settle?
The Queen, because he's an honourable person.
He didn't have to settle.
He did. Were you there in the room? I mean, I wasn't there, but I was told that the Queen and Buckingham Palace, basically, he was forced to settle. He had no choice.
I mean, look, let's bring in Duncan here, because...
And they literally just fed him to the wolves.
OK.
Right
hang on, Tessa. I want to bring in Duncan. From a journalistic point of view, if we were pursuing this as an investigation, and you had a woman who made allegations against two high-profile people, and one was a top lawyer, right? Alan Dershowitz is not any old lawyer. This is a guy who represented John Lennon and got him from being deported, right? This is a famous guy in America.
It's totally different.
And no, here's my point. And she makes allegations of a similar nature against him as she did against Prince Andrew. And she's now had to drop that lawsuit, admitting she may have made a mistake in identifying him as one of her past abusers. We know, as journalists, our natural instinct would be to then be very sceptical about anything else that she was saying, right?
Well, yes, but I mean, apart from the fact that this is a case that's gone on for years.
But just pretend it's not her. Just pretend it's like a person has just done this and has openly lied. And then, so what would you think about the case with another person? Do you think she's being truthful?
Well, either lied or she made a terrible mistake based on
just had a very
issues in her life.
creative imagination. And saw the
whatever the
other
reason, Tessa, wait a minute. Whatever the reason, she got it wrong, badly wrong, and seriously defamed Alan Dershowitz in the process. And he fought it all the way, and that lawsuit's now been dropped. And that is the same woman who's accused Prince Andrew.
There are all kinds of things that, had it gone to court, that would have probably needed light shed on them and might not have stood up to any kind of testimony at the time. The picture and the authenticity of it obviously being one of those points. But also about the involvement in newspapers more than a decade ago, when the story was being effectively sold to the tabloid papers, which I was part of at the time. And so that would be, in Britain, certainly, that would put a big question mark over any potential victim. But I don't think any of it matters if you take a step back. It doesn't actually matter what on earth Andrew's thinking if he is seriously contemplating reopening this. He's already been found guilty in the court of public opinion. And his appearance on the BBC with Emily Maitlis has just demonstrated...
Well, that was a total disaster.
well, that was a complete setup.
He set that up.
I can't even tell you what is really behind this, because you wouldn't even understand. But
it wasn't a setup. I mean, Newsnight went to him. He agreed to do an interview.
And he thought he did well.
He basically exposed himself hideously over an hour-long toe-curling encounter with a very smart journalist. Here's my problem with Andrew about all this, right? I remember when the pictures appeared on the front page of the News of the World of him walking with Epstein through a park, Central Park in New York. It wasn't like he just met him in the park. He spent 4 days with the guy at his Manhattan townhouse.
We don't know
Here are the
how many
pictures.
days
4 days, and they were all partying right? Lots of women seen coming and going in that time. This is after Epstein had admitted abusing a 14-year-old. After he was a convicted paedophile.
I followed
So
the
here's
story.
my question.
Yeah.
Is that you can get round... I mean, everything else can be murky.
Right.
What I can't get my head round is Andrew, son of the Queen, flies to New York for a 4-day jolly.
Do we know for sure it was 4 days?
We do.
though?
It was 4 days.
Yeah.
4-day jolly with a guy who was a convicted paedophile.
Yeah.
Now, that alone, to me, should disqualify him from public life, right?
I mean,
you can't be,
that was
a senior member of the royal family and consort with convicted paedophiles willingly for 4 days.
Yeah, but, you know, we have to remember it wasn't such a big story back then.
No, but it doesn't change the facts of what he did.
The second time
it doesn't
around.
change the facts of what he did.
When it happened the first time, I almost didn't even believe it when I first read it, because it was kind of like...
That's classic.
It wasn't on the front pages back then.
But Victoria, what you've said there is absolutely a classic case. People don't believe it when establishment figures do the unbelievable.
But what I'm saying is, you don't know about Virginia. Like, I've followed this day and night.
Victoria, could I just tell you what Andrew signed his name to?
Can I?
No, what I've got here are notes from the case that he put his name to. Let me tell you, Andrew accepted. When he signed last year, he accepted that Virginia had suffered as an established victim of abuse.
To anything,
and as a result of public attacks, he accepted that publicly. So are you now saying Andrew's a liar? Because to rescind on that, he's a liar.
He's never admitted anything,
but
any wrongdoing.
But he accepts she was the victim of abuse, of sex abuse.
Had to say that.
Oh, so now you're saying he's a liar. So
you know the irony, Victoria, is if Andrew had not settled, if he had taken it to court, then actually, given the timeline of this other case collapsing, it could have been a situation where the credibility of his main accuser had been brought into serious question before they even got into court. In which case, the whole case may have been dropped anyway.
What happened with Alan Dershowitz? I've been in communication with him, I don't know, maybe a year or so, and Virginia kept delaying. Her lawyers kept delaying and delaying and delaying, and his health wasn't good. You know, he was really suffering. And so if you're innocent, why would you keep delaying a deposition, right?
All right.